Lobby of Carter and Monroe Corp., Scottsdale, Arizona. 9:55 am. Marble floor gleamed like it had never been walked on. Amelia James stepped through the revolving doors with a quiet kind of confidence. The kind you only earn after years of outworking everyone in rooms you were never invited to. Her charcoal gray blazer hugged her frame just right. Not a crease on her skirt. Not a hair out of place. Reception sat behind a sleek glass desk, where a woman in pastel pink flicked her eyes up from the monitor. Amelia offered a polite smile. Good morning, Amelia James. 10 o'clock with Daniel Monroe. The receptionist nodded and picked up the phone, whispering just out of reach. Then, a practiced smile. He'll be right with you. Please have a seat. Amelia did just that. Portfolio balanced perfectly on her lap, legs crossed at the ankle, back straight as if posture alone could earn respect. From the corner of her eye, she noticed a man in a navy suit stride in, laugh with the receptionist, and be escorted through without a pause. Then another. Same smile. Same access. No waiting. She glanced at the clock. 10:03. No big deal. Important people run late. She checked her notes again. Even though she already had them memorized, if Amelia had known what was coming, she would have worn flats. The chair Amelia sat on looked expensive. Polished wood, cream, upholstery, but it was not built for waiting. Every few minutes, she shifted just slightly, enough to keep the blood flowing without appearing restless. Her phone buzzed once. A reminder she had set weeks ago. Leadership interview, 10 o'clock a.m. Be early. Be excellent. She had done both. Amelia had spent the last 3 weeks preparing. Not casually. Not like flipping through a resume over morning coffee. She had recorded mock interviews on her phone, studying the playback late at night under dim lighting in her small apartment. She had memorized every bullet point of the company's regional growth report. She knew Daniel Monroe's background better than he probably did. She had practiced her smile, her handshake, even her silence. Because silence, for women like her, was not emptiness. It was strategy. Her mother, Evelyn, had taught her that early. Back in a 2-bedroom home on the south side of Dallas, where the air conditioner rattled louder than the television, Amelia had listened as her mother ironed uniforms and whispered lessons over steam. You have to be twice as good, baby girl, just to get half as far. And if you flinch, even once, they will call it weakness. Amelia had believed her. She still did. That is why she did not flinch now. Not even as time crawled past 10:15. Not even as a pair of white men in pastel golf shirts strolled in, chuckled at a joke about Scottsdale traffic, and were immediately waved in by the receptionist, Mia, her name tag read, who suddenly became animated and cheerful. Amelia lowered her eyes, then raised them again, catching a glimpse of her own reflection. In the glass wall ahead, her face looked calm, professional, but the corners of her mouth had grown tight. She reopened her portfolio, even though there was nothing new to see. Mia never looked her way again. The air in the lobby felt colder now. Amelia wrapped her arms tighter around the portfolio like it was a shield. She was no stranger to being overlooked. But this, it was not just neglect. It was precision. It was a kind of erasure that happened in plain sight. Still, she told herself, stay professional. Do not give them a reason. Across the room, a delivery guy handed over a tray of smoothies and salads. Mia smiled wide, laughed at something he said. The phone rang. She answered quickly, said yes, of course. Then silence, but no one called Amelia's name. She checked the time. 10:26. That a woman in towering black heels and a sleek dress breezed in. Another handshake. Another welcome. Another door swinging open. Amelia pressed her fingers together, knuckles whitening. Would they have left William Carter sitting here for half an hour without even a basic update? Would Daniel have been ignored like this? The answer pressed against her ribs like a stone. The sharp corners of her portfolio dug into her thighs, but she welcomed the sting. It helped her stay still. Her body wanted to pace, to move, to demand attention, but she knew better. Knew how easily stillness could be mistaken for professionalism, and how quickly movement could be misread. She was not just waiting for a meeting. She was waiting to be allowed to matter. The worst part was that she could see everything. Every smirk, every passover, every casual nod that never came her way. She was not invisible. Not really. They saw her. They just chose not to acknowledge her. The minute hand on the brushed gold clock ticked past 11:07 a.m. Amelia stood slowly, careful not to draw attention. Her legs felt stiff, her toes beginning to throb in her heels. She walked to the front desk with that same composed grace she had practiced for years, shoulders back, chin level, voice smooth. "Hi," she said gently, "just checking to see if Mr. Monroe is still available for our 10 o'clock. Mia looked up as if Amelia had appeared out of nowhere. Her eyes flickered with vague recognition, then dulled again into something rehearsed. "Oh, right. He said he'll be with you shortly. Just finishing up a call." The same line, the same plastic smile. Amelia nodded politely and walked back to her seat, each step more weighted than the last. She sat down without a word, smoothed her skirt, and uncrossed her legs only to cross them again in the opposite direction. She had started the morning with quiet hope. Now she was navigating something else, something heavier, and that is when she saw him. Daniel Monroe. He stepped out of the frosted glass doors behind the reception desk, clipboard in one hand, laughing with another executive. Tall, lean, impeccably dressed. He moved like the kind of man who had never been made to wait, who assumed the world adjusted its pace to his stride. He scanned the room briefly as they exited, his eyes flicking across the lobby like a man checking for furniture placement, not people. They passed right by her, and no pause. No flicker of recognition. Not even a polite nod. He had no idea who she was. Amelia sat very still, but inside, something tipped, not rage. Not yet was something quieter, an ache she knew too well. That sharp, internal sting of being rendered invisible. And not because she had made herself small, but because someone else had decided she was not worth seeing. Her eyes followed Daniel as he disappeared down the hallway, still chuckling, still talking. "He doesn't even remember my name." She glanced down at her lap. Her hands were clenched so tightly around her portfolio now that her fingers had left faint creases in the leather. She could have stood, walked out, saved herself the humiliation of another minute sitting there like a forgotten file folder. But she did not move, because leaving would not just mean missing a meeting. That it would feel like letting someone else define her worth. Her mother's voice floated back again. The words came softer this time, like a reminder instead of a warning. "You do not walk away because they are slow to see you. You stay because you already know who you are." Amelia lifted her chin and sat a little straighter. Daniel Monroe may not have seen her yet, but that did not mean she was not there. The lobby was getting louder now. Footsteps echoed. Phones buzzed. Conversations bounced between glass walls like soft thunder. People moved in and out with purpose, dressed in sharp suits and smooth smiles. But Amelia James stayed still. She sat like stone in a room full of motion, quiet, composed, unreadable. Her back did not touch the chair. Her knees stayed crossed. The only thing that moved was her thumb, rubbing slowly against the edge of her leather portfolio. That had become her shield. Across the room, a janitor pushed a cart full of cleaning supplies. He wore old sneakers and a faded ball cap. As he passed, his eyes met Amelia's, just for a second, and in that small second, something unspoken passed between them. It was not pity. It was not surprise. It was recognition. Two people who knew what it felt like to be overlooked. Two people who had learned how to wait without breaking. Amelia gave him a soft nod. He returned it without stopping. It was the only real connection she had felt in nearly 2 hours. She checked the clock again. 11:58 a.m. 2 full hours. Still no call. No update. No apology. Mia laughed quietly behind the front desk, chatting with someone delivering lunch. A pair of executives clinked coffee cups together and disappeared into the elevator. A young intern hurried past holding a tray of bottled water and brochures. All around her, life was moving, but Amelia felt stuck, like she was frozen in the center of something important, but entirely invisible. She leaned forward slightly, stretching her legs beneath the chair. Her heel made a soft squeak on the marble floor. Heads turned. Eyes flicked her way, not kindly, not curiously, annoyed at as if her sitting there, silently, was somehow causing a problem. She pulled her legs back in and sat perfectly still. Again. Do I even exist here? Her thoughts were louder now, her silence heavier. She thought of all the ways she had prepared for this. All the nights she stayed up studying. All the days she rehearsed answers in the mirror. She had dressed for success, spoken with kindness, walked in ready. But none of it had mattered. Her posture was her last defense now. Her dignity was all she had left. She stared straight ahead, willing herself not to cry, not to sigh, not to shrink. If no one else saw her, then fine. She would hold her own ground anyway. Then, just as she felt that quiet weight begin to settle too deeply, the front doors opened. Not gently, not casually, they swung wide. And in that moment, everything in the room shifted. The lobby doors burst open with a sharp hiss of hydraulics. A gust of warm air swept in, and with it came 5 people dressed in muted blues, crisp whites, and the kind of authority that did not have to announce itself. Mia stood up instantly, smoothing the front of her blouse. Her voice shifted into something brighter, rehearsed. "Good morning, Miss Reed." "Mr. Carter," she said, almost breathless. Amelia recognized them both before the receptionist could even finish the greeting. Charlotte Reed, Senior Director of Finance. William Carter, CEO of the entire corporation. Behind them walked 3 other executives, all dressed in confidence and moving with the quiet control of people used to running rooms. Conversations around the lobby paused, just briefly. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Amelia sat perfectly still until Charlotte's eyes landed directly on her. And then, the moment that changed everything, the Charlotte's face lit up with surprise. But not the kind reserved for strangers. The kind reserved for someone known. "Amelia James," she said, her voice clear and warm. "I had no idea you were coming in today." The words bounced through the room like a dropped pin in a cathedral. Every head turned, including Daniel Monroe's, that he had just stepped into the lobby from the hallway, still carrying his clipboard, still mid-conversation with another manager. But the second Charlotte spoke Amelia's name, he froze. Amelia stood. Slowly. No rush. No panic. Her back straight, her shoulders level. She tucked the portfolio neatly under her arm and walked forward. Measured steps, quiet heels against polished marble. William Carter was the first to greet her. "It is good to see you again, Amelia," he said, extending his hand with a genuine smile. "We were just talking about your presentation last week. Outstanding work." Amelia shook his hand, offering a calm, composed nod. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. It means a great deal." Behind her, Daniel Monroe was walking toward the group. Now, his smile forced, his voice a little too loud. "Amelia, I am so sorry for the wait earlier," he stammered. "We had a situation come up. Completely unplanned. I hope you understand." Amelia turned toward him with the kind of steady calm that could only be earned through restraint. Her voice was clear, even. 2 hours is a long time for a situation, Mr. Monroe." Daniel's smile faltered. His face twitched, unsure whether to laugh it off or apologize again. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. Charlotte folded her arms loosely, watching. William raised an eyebrow. The silence that followed did not feel awkward, that it felt earned. Finally, Charlotte broke it. "If you have time, Amelia," she said, placing a hand gently on her arm, "we would love to bring you upstairs. There are a few projects we want your insight on." Amelia did not hesitate. "I would be happy to," she replied. Daniel cleared his throat, desperate to remain in the frame. "Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee?" "I can have Mia bring something up." But Amelia had already aligned her body toward Charlotte and William, walking beside them now. The offer was never acknowledged. Daniel stood behind them, holding a clipboard that no longer looked important. As the elevator doors opened, Amelia stepped in. She did not look back, but she could feel Daniel Monroe's discomfort burning against the back of her shoulders like sunlight through glass. And for the first time all morning, Amelia allowed herself the smallest, most private smile. Inside the executive conference room, the air felt different, not colder, not quieter, just lighter. The tension Amelia had carried all morning, the weight of being seen too late, began to shift, not vanish, but transform. Around the sleek oval table sat the top minds of Carter and Monroe. Charlotte Reed at the head, William Carter beside her. The other 3 executives leaned in as Amelia spoke, each nodding with interest, not out of politeness, but respect. She was no longer the woman waiting in the lobby. She was the center of the room. Charlotte slid a navy blue folder across the polished surface. Inside were early blueprints for something big, a new leadership initiative. a multi-region mentorship and development program meant to shape the next generation of senior executives. We are building this from the ground up, William explained, and we want you involved from day one. Amelia took a breath before opening the folder. The project timeline was ambitious. The resources allocated were serious. It was not an invitation to participate. It was an offer to lead. She leaned forward slightly and began asking questions. Sharp, precise, intentional. How would regional managers be trained to spot overlooked talent? Would there be equity tracking across race and gender? What reporting structures would ensure lasting change? They listened, really listened, and answered without defensiveness. Charlotte smiled at one point, glancing toward William. Exactly why we need her, she said. Across the hallway, behind a panel of glass, Daniel Monroe stood in his office, staring. He was not speaking, not moving, just watching from where Amelia sat. She could see him clearly. The way his hand hovered near the blinds, like he wanted to pull them shut, but knew he should not. Their eyes met. Just for a second, he looked small behind that glass. Not because of his title or his posture, but because he finally realized he had missed something. Someone. Amelia did not look away. She did not smile. She did not glare. She simply looked at him, calm, unbothered, unmoved, and then turned her head gently back to the conversation at hand, because this moment was not about him. This was about the seat she had earned, not granted. Earned. An hour later. As the meeting wrapped, Charlotte stood and extended her hand again. No pressure, she said, but I would love to have you help lead this. We need more people who see what others miss. Amelia shook her hand firmly. I appreciate the offer. I will give it serious thought. As she gathered her things, Charlotte walked her to the door. The hallway was quieter now. Daniel's office blinds were halfway closed, his silhouette dim behind them. Charlotte paused beside the elevator and turned to her with a softer voice. I know what this morning was, she said, and I promise you, no one goes through that again. Not on my watch. Amelia nodded once. Not stiff, not formal, just honest. Thank you for saying that, she replied. It matters. The elevator opened. She stepped in. The doors closed with a soft hush. This time, she was not walking out empty-handed. She was walking out seen, heard, and finally, valued. 1 week later, Amelia James sat at her kitchen table, coffee in hand. Laptop open. When the email landed, the subject line was short. Formal offer. Regional Leadership Initiative. She clicked it slowly, though she already knew what it would say. The body of the email laid it out clearly. The role was not just a seat at the table. It was a direct pipeline to a regional executive position, with full authority, expanded budget, and her own team to build from scratch. There was no celebration, no champagne, no loud calls, just a quiet exhale. Amelia closed the laptop and let the morning sunlight hit her face. She had earned this, not by demanding attention, but by holding her ground. That same day, across town, Daniel Monroe was called into a closed-door meeting with Human Resources. No one needed a memo to understand what was happening. The hallways whispered. The break room grew quiet. Too many overlooked meetings. Too many stories like Amelia's. By Friday morning, his nameplate was gone from the office door, and no one asked why. Amelia did not gloat. She did not look for revenge. She simply moved forward, step by step, just like she always had. Her first big meeting in the new role was packed. Department heads, project leads, fresh faces, curious ones. She stood at the head of the table, wearing a crisp white blouse and slate gray skirt. No armor this time, just presence. She clicked to the first slide of her presentation, looked up, then said, "Good ideas do not care where they come from. Neither should we." The room leaned in, because they knew this was not just a strategy. Meeting.it was the start of something different. Voiceover/closing lines. Some people will not see your value until someone else shines a light on it. But that does not mean your worth was ever missing. So stay ready. Hold your ground. And when your moment comes, walk into it without apology.